when you started GFI, you actually weren't on board with cultivated meat. Like, can you tell us a little bit about that evolution? And also, what about fermented foods? All right, now I'm asking you three questions at once. So, just tell us about your evolution on cultivated meat and how you came to. I don't know whether you think it's the equivalent of the plant-based project or actually the primary project.
The point I try to make in the book is we were so wrong about what we thought the plant-based meat endeavor was going to require. And I continue to think it's probably true that the scientific challenges and the scaling challenges around plant-based meat may be easier, but they're also a lot harder for people to understand. With plant-based meat, people are kind of starting at negative 100 in their understanding. They think they know what the challenge is, and they don't. And even, having conversations with people where one is very, very clear, they still just have preconceived notions and can't really have the conversation and think outside the boxes that they're in. And so that means even though the scientific challenges are probably easier and the scaling challenges are probably easier, you're not going to solve a problem that you're not trying to solve. And in the book, I dive into a lot of ways that the cultivated meat endeavor is much further along than the plant-based meat endeavor, which is also, I think, counterintuitive to a lot of people. And I could talk for the rest of our interview about that topic. So I'll just stop there.
No, actually, give me a little bit more about what this challenge is with the plant-based meat. Is it the taste? Because you talk a lot about that they're just not there yet on the taste. And I taste them and they taste really good to me, like really good. So, but I'm probably not the target. But is it the perceptions about the taste? Is it the taste itself? Or is it something else completely? That is the block that you're worried is going to take really a lot of effort to get rid of.
I mean, the really big block is getting the scientific focus on it in an open source, open access way. So getting academics who have the relevant skill set to do the work that will allow a company other than Impossible to do a really good job of producing the products. Because if all you've got is essentially one company who's really good at something, that's not a sufficiently large market sector to create the kind of competition and innovation and scale up that's going to be necessary. So on the cultivated meat side, there are now scientists all over the world trying to solve the precise challenge that we have laid out. Thousands of scientists with government funding solving these precise challenges. It's also true that however many tissue engineers there are on the planet, that is the number of people who have the precise right skill set to understand what we're trying to do with cultivated meat. There is no other reason other than making plant-based meat to try to figure out how plant proteins can behave like animal proteins, how plant fats can behave like animal fats, how we can replicate the umami flavor of meat. And we just need a lot more scientists, a lot more work. In the private sector, what this means, well, one other observation that I think does stem out of that, I think it stems out of the misunderstanding primarily, is we don't have much of a B2B infrastructure on the plant-based meat side, which means every single company needs to be an R&D company, an engineering company, and a consumer goods company. All three of those are really hard. I have a section in the book that says I got 99 problems, but the science ain't one. The science seems very clearly likely to work. Most, if not all, of the companies that have failed for reasons that had nothing to do with their science and tech with their science and engineering team. It had to do with investors who decided they wanted to go in a different direction, or just all the gazillions of reasons that companies fail. It's really hard. And if you're trying to be three different companies in one, that's going to be really hard. There are now many, many cultivated meat companies that are just focused on media, just focused on infrastructure, just focused on bioreactor design, the range of issues. There are very few that have the sort of we are going to service the entire industry mentality on the plant-based meat side. So those are a couple of examples of why plant-based meat, despite probably being an easier challenge to solve, again, if you have a fraction of the number of people focused on solving it, and like all of them or close are in the private sector, I'm a fan of the private sector. I think the private sector is a big part of how we show governments that this is actually a viable industry that they should support. But it's also true that every company is solving the exact same challenges in a silo. Whereas once governments start solving the challenges, that's for the entire industry, and sort of all boats can rise. So yeah, and then your question about GFI, yeah, when we started, we had a complete misunderstanding of what the challenge was on the plant-based side. We basically thought, look at how good plant-based milk is doing. Let's just do that for meat.
Yeah.
Now that Ethan and Pat, the founders of Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat, now that they've shown us the way, all we need is a lot more companies doing that, which was just radically wrong. We didn't understand the degree to which this was a science challenge and not a culinary challenge. And then on the cultivated meat side, like everybody else, we thought it was nowhere near ready for commercialization. It was really Uma Valetti who convinced us we should rethink. Well, he convinced me that we should look at it. And then the first two of the first 6 people we hired at GFI in June of 2016 were scientists. And one of them was charged with mapping out the plant-based meat techno-economic readiness sort of path to price and taste parity. And then Liz Specht was hired to do that on the cultivated meat side. And we very quickly learned that we were thinking about literally everything completely wrong.
Yeah, always good to find out, at least early in the game. I think that from the public side, part of the problem with cultivated meat and how it always feels so disappointing, and I understand this is just a feature of raising money, is that you have to kind of tell your investors that, we're 2 years away. Because that's what investors want to hear. And we kept hearing that it was 2 years away. And that's been about 20 years now. We've been hearing it was 2 years away. So I think people have gotten the feeling that it's just not going to happen. But you're making the point that every one of those 2 years, progress was made. It's just that it was a longer, long-term project.
Yeah, I guess 2 things. I can't speak for what anybody else said, but I will say I don't think it's been more than 10 years that anybody's been saying anything, because the first company was founded in 2016, so literally 10 years ago. So I don't think anybody was really making any statements. I don't know what I was saying before 2019. I should go back and look. But I did look at a TED talk that I did at the beginning of 2019, another TEDx talk that I did even a little bit before that. And my messaging since at least the beginning of 2019 has been, this is going to be really, really hard and really, really expensive. My quote in an Ezra Klein article from 2021 was, if we rely on the tender mercies of the private sector, it's going to take a really long time and we're not going to have very many products. So GFI's focus, at least for the last 7 years, has been, this is a science and engineering challenge. It's not going to solve itself. And the private sector is going to need a lot of help.
Yeah, and certainly it was not GFI who I recall saying that. It probably wasn't 20 years. It was probably 10. I admit it. All right, fermented. What's the story? I thought fermented foods were like the whole thing, and you hardly even mention them.
I think in the introduction I say whenever I have been saying plant-based meat, uncultivated meat almost from the beginning, and maybe from the beginning, and that's because when I say fermentation, people get this idea of meat that's been sitting on the counter for 10 days, Yeah, people just even corn, QUORN.
Right.
I've been on panels with them, and they are talking about how they are a plant-based meat company. Obviously, they're not. They're a biomass fermentation company. They're doing mycoprotein, but most people don't know that. So, yeah, there's not photosynthesis with fermentation. They don't make their own food. They actually have to you have to feed the mycoprotein. But from the vantage of the consumer, mycoprotein, fungi is really basically the same as plant-based meat. So at the beginning of the book, I say I'm going to talk about plant-based meat, but realize that I also mean mycoprotein, things like corn and Better Meat Company and a bunch of other companies. And then the other form of fermentation that's very, very clearly in the sort of alternative meats scope is precision fermentation. And in fact, the Solein, which you talked about earlier, making protein from air, that's using precision fermentation. And precision fermentation for plant-based and cultivated meat. For plant-based meat, it's really an ingredient, a flavoring agent. So like the Impossible Burger has a synthetic heme, which they do using precision fermentation. And probably a lot of ingredients in the media that feeds the cultivated meat some of the growth factors and other things that are really expensive can probably be produced a lot less expensively using precision fermentation.